through last night to today, Patty, I know, has done an awful lot of work, and indeed have Dan and Laura. So thank you all. It's for what we've already had and for what we're about to receive. Thank you very much indeed. When Dan and I talked about these speeches some months ago, we both agreed that ours at least would be very short, which I know is probably a blessing relief to most of you. And since I've learned that the father of the bride's speech not only should be short, it should set the tone for the other speeches and should be the least funny of all the three. So some of you may know last week they asked me to read a Shakespeare sonnet at the ceremony in London, so I thought, well, I may as well just read that again. It was 44 seconds, wasn't in the least bit funny, and Shakespeare does tend to set the tone. But I thought you might be disappointed if I didn't at least say a few words about Laura. And I'm not, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to do what many fathers do, and that's just try and embarrass her today. At least not deliberately. But before I do that, can I just say, darling, you look absolutely beautiful. Dan, you've done all right. So, what do you need to know about Laura? Or put another way, what's Dan getting for his money? Well, Laura has a sister, Amy, who lives in Australia and sadly can't be with us today. But they grew up together, only 15 months apart, so they were pretty close. And I would say that Laura has always been independently minded. She's always done things her way. She knows her own mind as Laura, and I think probably now she knows Dan's as well. She's also very strong-willed, and always has been. And when I was writing this speech, memories came to mind of the mother of all screaming fits, tantrums that she threw aged 3 in a shopping centre in Mallorca. And I can tell you, it was some performance. She just wouldn't shut up. And Lorraine and I made the immediate decision to walk away and spent the next 2 hours denying with the shopping centre staff that she was anything to do with us. And I've got his name here. Signor Rocca was the man who was dealing with it. He still regularly tweets that day in 1985 was life-changing for him. And that sadly the night sweats are still a regular occurrence. So Dan, when you and Laura go to your honeymoon, please do not visit the Puerto Centro shopping centre, because Signor Rocca is still there. He's 60, he's about to retire, and he's only just out of therapy. So, after that, 6 months after that, I've asked the family for reminiscences, and her nan remembers Laura, aged 3.5, being told not to be so stupid for having the temerity to suggest that walking under a ladder was unlucky. And aged 4 or 5, Amy realised that growing up with her little sister was going to be a challenge. And I quote, "She was quiet growing up, but you didn't mess with her. She almost had a sixth sense. I would have walked into her room and left no trace. However, she would always know I'd been in there and get so annoyed. If there was anything I learned very quickly, it was don't touch her stuff." Now, the rest of my reminiscences here are probably not in chronological order, but there was, as you might expect, the inevitable vegetarian phase. And Laura announced very suddenly one day that she was giving up meat and forever. And then very quickly she announced that she wasn't. And so animals, one by one, crept back into the diet until she was happily chomping on anything that started off life with 4 legs or feathers. I will say in her favour, however, that as part of this dietary transformation back to eating meat, she was very concerned about the welfare of the animals, and she would only eat organic meat. which was expensive, but frankly we got to the point where we do or pay anything rather than find yet another use for a can of green lentils and a bag of alfalfa sprouts. And it's confession time. There were a few occasions, Laura, we forgot to buy organic. We just hid the packaging. I'm sorry. Now you know. So we then come on to GCSE time. And Laura took her GCSEs at the same time as Amy took her A-levels. And Amy, again, recalls her being a very clever girl with an annoyingly good photographic memory. And one day, Amy had an A-level and Laura had a GCSE, and I quote again, she just sat next to me, read over a couple of pages of a history book and said, right, that's done. And she got a grade A. I knew then that my little sister was a clever little stick, a quiet star. Laura actually did very well indeed with her GCSEs, but again, demonstrating that independence of spirit, she decided that she didn't want to do what everybody else was doing and go on to take A-levels, but instead she would embark upon a music technology course, which sort of didn't work out. So then came floristry, in which she did excel, both academically and artistically, and in fact, I think certainly flowers last week and today, yeah, she did her own. So, you know, she's kept that skill going. But in amongst all this, the desire to travel took over, and she took herself off with friends and covered China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Peru, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Venezuela, Panama, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Mexico, Honduras, and the USA. Quite an achievement. And then in 2009, she met Dan, and as you know, the rest is history. And all I would say about Dan is that we like him a hell of a lot, and that we know that he and Laura are going to make a great couple. When he first arrived on the scene, Dan told me he was into something called D&B, which I now understand means drum and bass. But instead of at the time admitting I hadn't got a clue what he was on about, I'd somehow convinced myself that it was probably an offshoot of S&M. And if so, where did Laura fit into all this? But actually there is one similarity between D&B and S&M. I'll probably never experience either of them. But they do, of course, have music in common. Dan is a DJ and mixes music, and by the way, what a fantastic result to get that first CD deal. I know it's a bit slow in coming, but it'll happen, but well done. A great result. And Laura sings, composes, plays a number of musical instruments. All I can say is, God help the neighbours. And actually, while we're on the DJing bit, you would have thought, wouldn't you? You know, when a father's daughter tells her that she's going to be marrying a DJ, you'd think, when coming up to the wedding ceremony, if there's one thing that's going to go well, it's the music. Last Saturday, I know some of you were there, but if you weren't, you would have asked yourself the question, exactly how many DJs, best men, friends, relations, and other assorted wedding guests does it take to sync an iPhone to the amplifier in the Mayfair Library? And the answer is as many as were in the room at the time. So, we come on to Laura's final demonstration of doing things her way. At age 28, when other people have got their degrees behind them, she decided to embark upon a part-time psychology degree at Birkbeck College. And in November, Lorraine, Dan and I were all very proud to see her not only presented with her first-class honours degree, but also the Silverfield Prize and the British Psychological Association Undergraduate Prize. Yeah, well done, Laura. And you probably know that she's got funding to study for her MSc and her MA again at Birkbeck over the next 4 years or so. Yeah. So good luck with that. So in conclusion, I hope this has been short. I hope it's set the tone. And if any of you have felt compelled to laugh, I can only apologise. Laura, if you've been expecting words of wisdom from your dad today, I think you've probably been disappointed. But I will say a couple of things. One is, you promise to let each other grow and change. Always a good tip. Remember it. And also, enjoy every day of your married life from now on, but be prepared to take the rough with the smooth, because the rough will come. As someone once said, the concept of two people living together without a cross word suggests a lack of spirit only to be admired in sheep. And the best way to get the last word in an argument is to say, I'm sorry. That's all I can say. So, on behalf of Lorraine, Keith and Debbie, and I do actually, in these days of step-parents, I do want to acknowledge the role that Keith played in Laura's upbringing. It's very important for me to say that, and also, more recently, Debbie. But on all our behalves, can I just say how delighted we all are to be here, celebrating with you, over the week, in fact. It's been a week-long celebration, and also how proud we are of all your achievements and of Dan's. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to raise your glass and wish Dan and Laura every happiness and success in their married lives together. Thank you.